Time to review a movie that may not only be my favorite of the year, but so far the only musical that I have watched to make me cry at the end. Wicked tells the first part of the story of Elphaba into becoming the Wicked Witch of the West from the land of Oz. Hello, and welcome back to another review from HLHReviews. Today I'm going to be reviewing Wicked. This is the first part of adapting the Broadway musical of the same name, and we're going to be having a part 2 to this coming in November of next year. Now, I believe it's very important to say this right off the bat. I never watched the Broadway musical that this is based on, nor did I even read the novel that the musical is based on. And that is just simply due to the fact that I don't have the means or even within the budget to go to New York City to see it. And other than listening to the Defying Gravity song for, every now and then for months before I even saw this movie, I genuinely don't know anything about the plot or the other musical numbers or basically anything of Wicked beyond that it tells the story of how the Wicked Witch of the West became the Wicked Witch of the West. So yeah, because of my inexperience with Wicked, I just didn't have much of an interest or even to be anticipated for this movie. And that is pretty much up until I saw the marketing and the trailers for it, which already got me, interested to watch this, despite the fact that I have no knowledge of the musical other than Defying Gravity and the basic setup of the story. So, yeah, my expectations for this were low, so I just, decided to, just go ahead and watch this movie. Just went into it basically as blind as you can imagine. Just expecting nothing more but just to have a good time with it. And, yeah, I'm here to tell you, for this being my first Wicked experience, without hyperbole, I absolutely adored this movie. This was genuinely one of the best experiences I've had with a musical movie in a very long time. And it might end up being my favorite movie of the year. Now, I know a movie that I was not at all anticipating for in any way, shape, or form up until I saw the marketing. And I had no idea what the story of Wicked was or even where it was going to go. It might be my favorite movie of the year, despite that I have like a couple more movies in the following month that might prove me wrong, but who knows? But yeah, all in all, this might end up being my favorite movie that I've seen this year, period. So yeah, without any further delay, let's go over why by gobbling up the long laundry list of buckets of popcorn. And again, I'm not someone who knows the story of Wicked at all, but I really enjoyed, with what they gave me in this first part. I am definitely going to get into spoiler territory here, so if you haven't seen the movie, then just go ahead and see it and come back here when you're done. So you have Elphaba, who is this woman who was born green, who attends this university in Oz. And then you have Glinda, who is also attending the same university. And you start to have these two having this unlikely friendship with each other as Elphaba studies there so she can go meet and work with the Wizard of Oz. And on top of that, there's these conflicting viewpoints that Elphaba and the rest of these characters have throughout this movie. And there's also, some form of, xenophobia or even some bullying in there when, you have Elphaba that just shows up to this university and everyone's just so off-put of how and why she's even green. And then you also get into some of this corruption that the Wizard of Oz has with these talking animals in Oz, and that ultimately sets off Elphaba to start her journey into becoming the Wicked Witch of the West that we all pretty much know and love and might even be scared shitless of. And even though I didn't get the completed story in this because it is the first part of it, and I sadly have to wait until next year just so I can know where the rest of the story is going to go, I was still engaged with the story. You know, it is this type of story that if you had read the Wonderful Wizard of Oz book from 1900, or even if you have watched the Wizard of Oz movie from 1939, it is the type of Wizard of Oz like story that you could probably easily see fitting in the Wizard of Oz universe, although from what I've read, this has, it's not canon to the books in any way imaginable because Wicked is just its own thing. I pretty much enjoyed the songs that you get in here, which they're all from the first half of the I pretty much enjoyed the songs that you get here, which they're all from the first act of the musical, so you're going to get songs in here like Popular, No One Mourns the Wicked, The Wizard and I, Dancing Through Life, and of course, the most popular one, Defying Gravity. Now, as someone who is just not, too big on how I would, describe a song and, how it felt to me, but all I can say is that I think all of them were performed well, they are written well, which isn't really a big surprise to me in any way, because the music and lyrics were all written by Stephen Schwartz, who I am more familiar with movies like Pocahontas, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Enchanted, and even my favorite animated movie of all time, The Prince of Egypt. And just as he did in the movies I mentioned, Schwartz clearly showcases here how much talent he has as a songwriter through these songs. They can very easily make you sing or hum once you leave the theater. And, the number of times that I wish I could belt out Defying Gravity, but I'm not all for embarrassing myself. I love the direction that John M. Chu gives in this movie. I think he does a very great job of, obviously, giving the actors good performances, but the direction that he brings to the screen really does make you feel like you're in the Land of Oz through its production design, the lighting, the costumes that the characters wear, and even the way that he's able to direct these like big musical numbers that have a lot of people dancing in one camera angle to another, and then you gotta have your actors sing and be able to emote well. And honestly, with a great direction that he was able to give you in this, I pretty much have all the confidence in the world that that will all carry over in part 2 next year. I think pretty much all of the cast here give really good performances, both in acting and singing. You, of course, have Cynthia Erivo in here, who is basically phenomenal as Elphaba. Now, I first saw Cynthia in Bad Times at the El Royale, which was a movie from 2018, and that is a movie that I've always enjoyed, pretty much ever since I saw it in theaters, and, she was great in that movie, and, not just from an acting standpoint, but also did great whenever she had to sing in the movie, and she does an awesome job in this movie, and I never saw the musical, so I have no one to compare her to, not even Idina Menzel, because I can't have an opinion and compare her to her, especially when I've never watched the musical to begin with, but I think she did great in bringing this character to life, and, you can just instantly forget that you're just watching Cynthia Erivo in green makeup. I think she had some really good chemistry with Ariana Grande, and she is able to just convey emotion with her face, and especially vocally whenever she's in a musical number, which is not a surprise at all if you ever saw her or even heard her sing and act, period.
I'm not afraid. It's the wizard who should be afraid of me.
Ariana Grande is someone that I'm not all that familiar with for acting, like maybe aside from seeing her in TV shows, Victorious and Sam and Cat. And nor do I ever had a chance to listen to her music, like other than bits and pieces of it, so I got to have a completely fresh opinion on her in this movie. And I think she too did a great job in her acting, as well as clearly showcasing how talented she is as a singer. And again, I just don't have anyone to compare her to in any way, but she did a really good job too of bringing her version of Glinda to life. And she too has great chemistry with Cynthia Erivo, and obviously showcasing how much talent she has of being a singer. And whenever she's performing songs like Popular, No One Mourns the Wicked, and even the last song with Cynthia, Defying Gravity.
I saved you some space, by the way.
Do you really think this is fair?
I do not. I was promised a private suite. But thanks for asking.
Come with me.
What?
To meet the wizard.
I couldn't possibly. This is your moment. I'm coming.
I also really enjoyed seeing like the references that they give to you in this movie. Like when the movie opens with like this 1930s like version of the Universal Pictures logo, and in the opening title cards they use the same font from the Wizard of Oz's opening title card and used it for this movie's title card, especially at the end. And again, even though I never saw the musical, it was, good to, to see Idina Menzel, and you even get to see Kristen Chenoweth. Both of them are the original Elphaba and Glinda from the musical, respectively. And, they're both in this musical number that's set in the Emerald City. And at one point, Idina Menzel does this vocal riff, which is basically similar to what she did in the Defying Gravity song from the musical. And, you even get to see Steven Schwartz cameo in here as, like, an Emerald City guard. And, these references, like, it really just shows, like, how much the crew not only love and respect the Broadway musical, but they also showcase their love for the Wizard of Oz world. So there'll be plenty of references in here that I think you're definitely going to smile about. And finally, we get to talk about why, or not we, just me, but I get to talk about why, this movie got me emotional and even got me to tear up at the end, which is something that has never happened to me in a musical before. Now, for months before I went to go see this movie, I would often listen to the Defying Gravity song from the musical. Again, I didn't know what the actual context behind the song was, or even what the story of the musical was that Defying Gravity belongs to. But, at the time I thought it was, just clearly a well-written song, but didn't think nothing more of it, but just as like this uprising song that starts off the villain arc of Elphaba being the Wicked Witch of the West. And while that is true, in some aspects, but this movie did surprise me now that I know the actual context behind the song. And that is just simply because that you have Elphaba, who always wanted to go see the Wizard of Oz ever since she was a child, but then quickly realizes once she meets him that he is not the heroic person she thought he was because of him wanting to cage all these animals in Oz. So she, in the song, vows to do everything to stop him, and nobody in Oz, not even the wizard, will stop her. And it also helps that they sell you how Elphaba and Glinda got to be friends, and you can clearly see like how much of a good, unlikely friendship they've had ever since they first met at the university. And even when Glinda knows the path Elphaba is going, no matter what, she and Elphaba hope for each other, that they are just happy with their choices. And the way that John M. Chu directs that Defying Gravity musical number, and when I finally understood why Elphaba and Glinda feel the way that they do in the song, and how I bought into how much these two characters felt for each other as friends, I think that's why I got emotional and teared up. Like, especially when you have, Elphaba that's using this broomstick that, she's levitating on, and, she's just singing her heart out, singing her heart in the song above the Emerald City. And I don't know, like, I just never felt that way about a musical or even a musical movie before. And, though I do get emotional or even get tears in my eyes when I do watch something that, gets me to feel those emotional levels, it's very different and satisfying when you have a movie like this where I didn't know the story whatsoever. I didn't know where it was going or what it was about. And I don't know if the second part of the story will ever get to make me feel like that again as it did at the end of the movie. But, I genuinely was amazed that, this movie was able... Oh God, I'm starting to get emotional again. But yeah, I was genuinely amazed that this movie that it made me feel emotional, and got tears in my eyes. Once I understood the further context behind the Defying Gravity song, and that was all just thanks to watching, the first part of the story. And again, I don't know if this movie's gonna make me tear up again, or if the second part of the story is going to make me, tear up and cry. But I don't know. But yeah, I was genuinely amazed at just how much I got emotional, And it's all just, thanks to the performances of Cynthia and Ariana, and as well as the direction that John M. Chu brought to, like, those final 15 or 10 minutes of that movie for me. And now we're going to move on to the gas station burrito that might get me the shits afterwards. Now, I don't have any major criticisms for this movie whatsoever, so... The only thing that I was truly mixed on, which, wasn't the running time, because, I had fun with the movie. There wasn't any part of this movie where I was bored or looking at my phone at any point. And I don't know if this movie could have worked if it was under 2 hours, or if they took musical numbers out. I don't know if that would have worked, because I never saw the musical before, but... The only thing that I was truly mixed on was the character of Fiyero Tigler. Oh God, I probably fucked that name up. I'm just gonna call the guy Fiyero. Hope I don't get, any Wicked fans being offended the way I was pronouncing his name. But you have the character of Fiyero here, who is this prince that Glinda and eventually Elphaba, falls in love with. So you do have this kind of love triangle going on that's there up until the third act of the movie. And though I think Jonathan Bailey does great in the role, both from an acting and singing standpoint, I just felt that his character felt generic to me. And, there wasn't anything that stood out about him other than being this prince that Elphaba and Glinda basically fall heels for. Now, I'm sure that the second part of this story, with part 2 next year, I'm sure it's gonna, make me feel differently with him, and, to further see what they're gonna do with him, as well as, Elphaba, and the way that that it's set up of what is going to happen between, Elphaba and Glinda, as well as, Fiyero. Especially now that Elphaba is going to essentially be the Wicked Witch of the West, but the guy just felt generic, and he didn't really feel like an Ozian character to me. But again, I hope part 2 proves me wrong on that. But yeah, Fiyero to me just felt generic, and there just wasn't really much about him. That part aside, I absolutely enjoyed Wicked. It is one of the best experiences I ever had with a musical and a movie in a very long time. And, like I said, it might be my favorite movie of the year, even though I wasn't anticipating for this movie in any way up until I saw the trailers for it. And, yeah, for me to say that this is my favorite, yeah, especially when I have a couple more movies next month that might prove me wrong, but we'll just have to wait and see. So yeah, I encourage you all to go see Wicked, whether if you're already a fan of the musical or even if you're just a newcomer to the story like me. I'm already excited to see how part 2 concludes this story. And if part 2 is on any level of quality as part 1 was, which I have all the confidence in the world it might be, not only am I also going to be watching this and part 2 when I'm in a Wizard of Oz mood, but one day I'll make it a goal in life of, wanting or of going to experience the musical in New York City. To wrap this up with my consensus, Wicked will make you defy gravity by enjoying a brilliantly directed musical filled with great performances by its 2 leads, wonderful musical numbers, and it will make you click your heels to return to this land of Oz for part 2. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please tell me how you feel about this movie down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and see a lot more videos from me in the near future. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell.